The billionaire CEO, Adrian Knight, had spent his entire life building walls around himself. His company, Knight Industries, was one of the most powerful in the world, yet behind his polished suit and commanding presence, Adrian was a man who trusted no one and shared his home with silence. That silence was his comfort until the day he came home early. The sky was heavy with rain that evening, and Adrian decided to leave work hours before his usual midnight return. His mansion stood like a fortress, a place few ever entered, and he liked it that way. But as he pushed open the door, expecting stillness, he froze. From the kitchen, he heard faint whispers. Not the sound of a burglar, this was softer, warmer, almost like a lullaby. Heart pounding, Adrian moved quietly through the hall. When he stepped into the kitchen, his eyes widened. There, standing with her back to him, was Clara, the night janitor he had seen in the corporate building countless times. But she wasn't cleaning. Instead, she was bent over, gently feeding a little girl seated at the table. The child's eyes were hollow with hunger, her clothes too small and threadbare. And Clara, his janitor, was hiding her in his kitchen. Adrian's instinct was to demand an explanation, to unleash the sharp words that had built his empire. But something in the way Clara looked at her daughter stopped him. Fear, exhaustion, and love flickered across her face. He stayed silent until Clara finally noticed him. "Sir, I can explain," she stammered, her voice trembling. "Please, don't call the police. I didn't mean to intrude." For a moment, Adrian felt anger boil. How had she even entered his home? But then, the little girl coughed, a weak, dry sound that pierced the air. Clara rushed to her side, patting her back with trembling hands. In that moment, Adrian realized this wasn't an act of theft. This was survival. Over the next hour, Clara's story spilled out in broken pieces. She was a widow, working 2 jobs just to keep a roof over their heads. Her daughter, Lily, had been sick for weeks, but medical bills were far beyond her reach. Clara cleaned the CEO's office building at night, but the meager wage barely covered food. That evening, desperate and with nowhere else to go, Clara had slipped into the mansion through the service door she knew the staff sometimes left unlocked. She hadn't come to steal, she had come to use the stove to make soup for her starving child. Adrian listened, his chest tightening in a way he hadn't felt in years. He had spent his life surrounded by luxury, yet here was a woman who scrubbed his office floors by night, hiding her daughter in his kitchen just to keep her alive. The challenges weighed heavy in that room. Clara's pride clashed with her desperation. She didn't want charity, but she couldn't keep Lily fed. Adrian faced his own battle. The walls he had built around his heart now threatened to collapse. For once, he wasn't looking at numbers or deals, he was looking at 2 human souls caught in a storm he had never known. The next days changed everything. Instead of firing Clara, Adrian made a quiet decision. He helped. He arranged doctors for Lily, sitting awkwardly in the waiting room, feeling strangely protective of the little girl who clutched a worn teddy bear. He offered Clara a better position, one that paid enough to let her live with dignity. But Clara resisted. "I don't want pity," she said firmly, though her eyes glistened with tears. Adrian didn't pity her. For the first time, he admired someone not for power, but for strength. He told her, "This isn't pity. It's respect. You've fought harder than most people I know." As weeks passed, Lily's health improved. Clara's fear began to fade. And Adrian, once a man who returned to an empty mansion, began to find joy in the simple things. Lily's laughter echoing in the kitchen, Clara humming while she cooked, the warmth of a family he had never dared to imagine. Still, the road wasn't without obstacles. The corporate board questioned Adrian's sudden interest in the janitor. Gossip spread, and Clara feared losing everything again. But Adrian stood firm. For a man who had built an empire, protecting Clara and Lily became his greatest fight. One evening, months later, Clara stood in the very kitchen where everything began. She looked at Adrian with gratitude but also with pride. "You didn't just save us," she whispered. "You reminded me that there are still good people in this world." Adrian smiled faintly, though his eyes betrayed the depth of emotion he rarely showed. "No, Clara. You reminded me what it means to have a heart." The billionaire CEO who once lived in silence had found his home not in marble walls or gold chandeliers, but in the laughter of a child and the resilience of a mother.